Bom dia, pessoal. Estamos aqui começando o nosso 11º Festival Games for Change América Latina, ainda acertando a conexão, né? Acertando as tecnologias, avisando por e-mail. Queria dar as boas-vindas aos que já estão aqui presentes. Essa é uma sessão mais para esquentar, né? Começar a conectar, começar a criar aquele clima de festival. Hoje é feriado, né? A proclamação da República. A gente resolveu fazer o início, mesmo sendo feriado, online, para a gente bater papo e testando os sistemas. A gente vai circular as moedas da paz, tem a plataforma Brela, para o pessoal também começar a se acostumar com as ferramentas, são poderosíssimas, de matchmaking, de networking. E a gente quer começar lembrando do ciclo que a gente fez o ano passado, o JOIA, Jogos Online, Infância e Adolescência. Foi um trabalho de pesquisa que foi realizado e a gente, nesse contexto da pesquisa, fez um ciclo de palestras. E a gente vai lembrar agora a apresentação muito interessante da Sônia Livingston, uma das maiores pesquisadoras sobre tecnologia, internet, mídia, comunicação e infância. Professor da London School of Economics. Nós já estamos preparando a publicação, inclusive, da tradução para o português de alguns trabalhos dela. E hoje a gente vai lembrar um pouquinho dessa apresentação que ela fez para a gente o ano passado. Então, a gente está resgatando, retomando. Vamos dar a voz aqui, então, para a Sônia Livingston. Vamos ver se vai dar certo aqui.
By Design, a child rights perspective on designing for children's play. As I said, the work is from the Digital Futures Commission, which is hosted by the Five Rights Foundation. So I begin with the idea of play as a forgotten right. We often think about all kinds of rights, and we should. There are many rights, and Maria also already mentioned the importance of the right to inclusion and not to be discriminated against. And in the world of children's rights, all the rights matter in a holistic perspective. But it is often forgotten that in the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, the Committee on the Rights of the Child recognises the right of the child to rest and to leisure, to engage in play and recreational activities appropriate to their age, and to participate freely in cultural life and the arts. And in General Comment 25 by the Committee on the Rights of the Child, which explains how the convention digital world, the same idea is present again, that it's the responsibility of governments to ensure that children have the opportunity to use their free time to experiment in a digital world and to express themselves and participate. I've put a picture on the slide of children playing freely in the countryside, in the woods, and I think this is a very kind of common imagination of what play looks like, and play does look like that, and it's wonderful when play looks like that. Children can run freely in the woods and invent their own games, but it's one form of play, an important one, but not the only one. And my focus is really on how we can capture some of that freedom that we imagine in the running wild in the countryside. How can we bring some of that freedom to the digital world? And so our work on Playful by Design is really trying to think, how can we rethink and redesign the digital world, the digital environment, so that it really has the best of play, so that play is no longer a forgotten right, but a really crucial right for children. I'm just going to make that slightly larger. Yeah, so I think that might be better. So the Digital Futures Commission is a child rights focused action research project, which is seeking to inform innovation in the digital environment in ways that are consistent with children's rights. And we ask, what does good look like for a digital world designed primarily for adults? And that's because very often those thinking about child rights focus on what's bad. But it's also important in a world, perhaps, is also in the children are often invisible. They get worried about as vulnerable, but not necessarily empowered, or they get overly empowered, celebrated as digital natives. And yet, one thing I hear in my work often is that doing what children need, and children are so uncivil. They're not. You know, we want to blame them for what goes wrong. They lie about their age. They cheat and deceive to get into spaces where they shouldn't. So there's a lot of digital world. So in the Digital Futures Commission, we're assessing evaluate their opportunity to propose ways to enhance them. And that highlights several contested boundaries between what is for children and what is for adults. And how do we think about the online-offline relationship, which is still with us? And we're focusing especially on ideas of free play. So we began our work 12 of the rights of the child, that children should be consulted on matters that affect them. We did the consultation with children and young people during the pandemic, and so we had to consult them on Zoom, but we put out a public call and we consulted children and also professionals who work with children, teachers, nursery workers, health workers, theatre workers, all kinds of professionals whose commitment is to make the digital world better for children. So we heard from children and young people and others, and then we reviewed the literature, and we have put out 3 reports relevant to play, of which Playful by Design is the third and the last, and it's really that one I will talk about. But we built on a review called The Panorama of Play, in which we sought to understand play in its widest and most ambitious dimensions. Not just gaming on a phone, but play defined ambitiously. What have been philosophers' thoughts about play over the centuries? What have been educators' ambitions for play? What do parents expect from play? How is play in different countries and different cultures and different parts of the world? And what have we learned from studying all of those different experiences? So we kept that kind of big agenda in the panorama of play, and then in the kaleidoscope of play in the digital world, we focus especially on everything that social science has told us in the last 20 years about what does play look like online. And then we move into the world of possibilities, but also problems and uncertainties, because there's a lot we don't know. But we tried to keep that kind of big history and cultural review going as we look towards the digital literature. And then we come to Playful by Design, which is our proposal, really, of how to invite the designers and developers and to provide content for the digital world, to find a way for them to, or to offer them an answer to what good. And I think they do. But of course, they also must maximize their profit and maximize their kind of reach and power. But I am written to by a company or some companies in most weeks to say we would like to make our product more rights respecting, better for children. What does good look like? What should we do? What do you recommend? And we partly wrote this report then as our way of making a recommendation for them. So my first point I want to make today is I really think it's time to change the narrative, not only about the digital world, but about play. So we talked during our research to teenagers who regretted how early they had to leave play behind. Play seemed just now for little children, not for the 0 to 18-year-olds of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, all of whom have the right to play in a rights framework. We met teachers who confessed to us that they'd kind of forgotten about the importance of children's play. Well, they had no time because there was so much they had to do with the curriculum. We talked to parents who were so worried about screen time rules and how long the children had been online that they didn't have the hours. What do you encourage children to do? What do you direct them to? These conversations seem forgotten if you're just saying 1 hour, 2 hours, bad, turn it off. And we met children as addicted because they might love to play their favorite game for 2 hours after school. Research as a footnote says most children are really not addicted. Addicted is a high clinical bar, but many children are talking about themselves as if they have a problem, as if enjoying their own play in a digital space means that they have a serious problem. But at the same time, we heard about what I'll call the secret life of play. Parents who love to play with their children, though they don't talk about it outside. They don't play hide and seek with my children, but they do. We talked to professionals who were seeking inspirational ways to enable children's expressive play. This was very important during lockdown, during the pandemic, when everyone needed new ways to play because everyone was stuck indoors together and not able to meet friends. We talked to teenagers who were having fun playing with their so teenagers would never say they play with dolls, of course they don't, or with toy cars, but actually they do it with their little brothers and sisters. It's just all under the radar. It's all hidden, and we want to make it less shameful, less embarrassing possible. Adults play, children play. What is life if we don't play? So I'm trying to kind of capture that idea of free play, really, and it is free play that is so much under threat, both offline and online. Offline is under threat because children are not so free to go outside. There is traffic, parents fear strain, a lot of anxiety, but also online, children don't have much time for free play. Yes, they can do gamified play to learn their mathematics or to help with their schoolwork. They to learn health messaging, or this is all fine, but it squeezes out the time in which children can decide for themselves as a matter of their agency, their freedom, their expression. How do they want? I don't think as a society we really know what is a great answer to that question. In our consultation, we thought very carefully what we'd learned about free play. And one image, I don't know if this works. In Brazil, this little girl here with a cardboard box proved to be a very resonant image in Britain. Everyone had a story about not the present, not what's in the box, but playing with the box itself, which everyone can afford and which everyone can be creative with. The box itself is kind of encapsulates a vision of what child-centered play might look like. And you can see that from the quotations that you can draw on the box, it doesn't matter. Everyone can play with it differently. It can be a car, it can be a helicopter, it can be a boat, it can be anything. It doesn't have constraints, so your imagination, as one boy said, can go completely wild. So we asked ourselves images of play. What is the cardboard box online, on the internet? What is that space where children can play with their own imagination in ways that are free, risk-taking, experimental, fantastic? What does that look like? So one of the interesting things is that some people in our consultation took those ideas of the cardboard box, of free play, and applied it to the digital world. So the first quote, a boy says, "I can see the comparison of a cardboard box with Minecraft. It's your imagination. You can build a 10-foot orange if you want to." Sees a connection between Lego and Minecraft. So again, making a kind of link from the offline into the world online. Another child here, or young woman on Roblox, is hide and seek, all the same. Children hide, they find each other. It's exciting. I think every culture probably has some version of it. And here's a girl saying, "You can do it on Roblox," and she's, "I feel this They just run past me. And here's a tip anymore: rope, jump rope. But TikTok is the new skipping. So we look out to the classroom at the playground and we see children doing these movements. And they all know the movements, and it has that ritual function, it has that play function. It's physical, it's social, it's the game that they have invented for themselves. So there are these kind of connections. Children are building these links across from what they know and value of free play in the world and taking it into the digital spaces. But, and this is where colleagues in the Alana Institute and others have done such brilliant work, of course they meet all kinds of constraints, they meet all kinds of problems. There are problems offline too. There are problems in the natural environment and the social environment. I'm not saying that aren't, but I'm interested in how we can take the possibilities of free play and redesign the digital environment. So what are the problems in the digital environment? They talk about scary people that parents get worried about. Not being able to kind of properly control your privacy, and people can find you and they can see what you've done, and you haven't got control over your identity and your self-expression. The algorithms that mean that you're always pushed into something that might be quite problematic, that might be quite distressing. All you need is to like a video that's distressing, and the algorithms will give you more and more of those. Finding it difficult to stop, kind of compulsive design. As a father says, getting my 6-year-old to stop playing even Minecraft, which many would approve of, but it still has that compulsive escape and to stop playing. So we listen very carefully to both the kind of the possibilities and the constraints in the digital environment, and we asked ourselves, what seems to be working and what seems to be not working, and then what can designers and developers do to improve. Sorry, just make sure you can see that properly. Yeah. So we based on our literature review and based also on what was told to us in the public consultation, we derived what you see here as a set of qualities of play. You know, what is free play? Some of them came from the literature. Some of them were added by children themselves. So here you see children to their own hands telling us what are the qualities of free play. But this is my a kind of next key point, really, which is to say, in playful by designs really matter. There may be others, but these really matter. Play should be intrinsically motivated by the child. It should be voluntary. It should be open-ended. It should be imaginative. It should be emotional resonance is interesting. Play is not always happy. It might be playing a sad game. It might be it should be social. This is actually super important to children. of course, but sometimes they can play individually, privately, though they might be imagining a social world. It should be diverse. There'll be something very odd if all children choose to play in exactly the same way, even though the digital world may seem to encourage that at times. But if play belongs to their context, then it will be taking. This is quite controversial with adults, but experts are absolutely clear that through their play, children are being experimental. They explore their world. They discover what they are capable of. They discover their limits. They find strategies to cope with their limits and work around the problems that they face. But if they're always too safe, contained, they won't discover and stretch their limbs and stretch their possibilities through experimentation and pushing boundaries. And yet, play should be safe, and children talk a lot about this, both out there in the woods, in the fields, climbing trees, and in relation to the digital world. Children talked about a sense of achievement through their play, and this doesn't come through so much from the research literature, but was very strong from children, that they feel they've achieved something, they've done something, they've done well at something, they've completed a level, or they've built a game, or they've created a world, or they've run faster than they did before, or they've built a fort, or they feel it's a sense of achievement. It's their agency on the world, their way in which they achieve something in the world. And for them, it's important that it's immersive. And this again might seem controversial, because we don't want children to be addicted. We don't want children to be compelled to play, but they do value being immersed in a game, lost in a world of make-believe, lost in a world that they have created and that they are voluntarily participating in. And in that sense, they value being immersed. When we were asking children about the qualities of play, we asked them about different kinds of apps, and some of these were Fortnite, and some of them were digital online spaces that you wouldn't think of as a game, but could be a place where children play. So Zoom, for example, pandemic. I don't know if Zoom was as big in Brazil. We're not using it now, but I think in many parts of the world, Zoom became, or there are other video apps, the only way in which one child could play with their friend or see other family members or other friends. And so they learned how to play. So here's a child talking about playing hide and seek or catch on Zoom. And they found ways of doing it. Or they would play quizzes on Zoom, or games where at each side of the interaction they would have some games or some drawing, and they would play together. So we were interested in where children play or feel playful online, whether or not it's a game or whether they find a way. But at the same time, of course, they, as I've said, they had lots of anxieties, but also about the potential of some games. did a national survey. We wanted to have some representative data on, in this case, 1,000 children across Britain that represented North and South and rich and poor and all different groups. And this is just a very simple graph, just to give you a sense of how important it is that we get it. So we just asked children first, how often do you do something playful on the internet? How often do you play outside? How often do you play with friends in person? How often do you do creative things? And how often do you play with games or toys? Sorry, you can't quite see my scale. So online, they hardly, how often do you play on the internet? 50% play every day, and nearly 40% answers are frequent play. And in fact, if you compare, you'll see that playing on the internet is done more often than anything else. Playing outside in those woods or playing are done, let's say, once a week, but online play is every day. Again, I'm not saying that I think this is right or wrong. I'm saying because this is the case, we need to do more to make this frequent online play as positive an experience as we can. I think the possibilities of just saying we have to stop it, we have to turn it off, we have to put back the clock to 30 or 40 years ago is not going to work. The next thing we did in the survey was we wanted to understand, okay, so how does this online play compare with offline play? What kind of experiences are these? And we used the qualities of play to make the comparison. So we I'm just trying to fit everything on the slide in the way. Oops. Didn't mean to do that. So we took the 12 qualities of play, which I already showed you, the importance of being intrinsically motivated, and imaginative and social and so forth. And we asked children to compare them in playing in digital contexts and non-digital contexts. And what was interesting, first of all, is that more children said they had a great time playing in non-digital contexts. And then the pattern for the two is actually rather similar, but the orange line, the non-digital, is generally better. So children had more fun playing in non-digital contexts, and they rated those contexts better for being imaginative and stimulating and diverse and open-ended and offering emotional resonance, sense of achievement and safety. So offline is still better. There is a task for those designing the online world to make it as good, if not better. And ideally, they would make it even better, because for both contexts, risk-taking is something children don't get many opportunities to do. It's much lower. Safety is lower, both offline and online. And look here, children are less likely to say online or offline that their play comes from them, is child-led, is intrinsically motivated, and a matter of their own voluntary choice. A lot of pressure, a lot of expectations to play in a certain way, act in a certain way, and both offline and online. But online is where I'm trying to work out how we could improve things. So we ask children next, when you're playing online, what's it like? And we really struggled to work out what questions we could ask them about, you know, what are the, not just what's it like, but what are the features of the digital environment that they identify that perhaps help their play, make it more imaginative, or support their kind of open-ended play, or perhaps inhibit their ability to take risks. And so based on our literature review, we asked them all of these questions, and they told us, for example, things they play, the apps they play, the spaces they play online are pretty good in being played together by people of different ages, which they want, at making it easy for new users to join and give them some control over who can contact them, but are less good in quite a lot. 50% said the data shares my information. 67%, 2/3, so it can be really hard to stop playing. 60% said the games I play include adverts, that I can buy things. Again, 6 in 10 said the games I play, some people feel excluded when they're playing. This is part of the nature of the play space, the play opportunity, that some people feel excluded. 56%, I see people playing, saying nasty things in that space, being hateful in that space. So when they describe, what is their play like in terms of being imaginative and expressive and so on, they also see that space they're in online has some positives and some negatives. And so we ask them next, well, what do you want? What would be your design? What do you think would make things better? And that turned out to be easy to say. They want more games and spaces that are easy for them, that are appropriate for their age group, that support their creativity, that are not too expensive, that don't include adverts, that give them that everyone feels included, that don't share their data with the business, control their privacy, and so on. Actually, children had a lot of answers about what, for them, playful by design would look like. And perhaps this could be a list of things to do for any designers or developers or businesses who are interested in our research. I think it could also be a talking point for parents and for teachers. I mean, one could ask a child, and parents often say to me they don't know what to ask their child. Their child is staring at the screen. What should we ask? I don't know what to say, except that's long enough, get off. But you could say, is this game easy to play? Do you think that this is good for people your age? What are the ways this game or play allows you to be creative? Does it give you control over, it could be a conversation. We know what children see and what they want, but they often say they can't share these insights with adults. And this could be, if you like, a language for doing so. So as you can see, I'm trying really to get to the point about design and digital worlds. We think about what parents should do and what teachers should do and what governments should do. But we're really trying to think in which the digital world is designed can be changed. It's for human purposes. Maybe not always our purposes, but it is a process that can be managed and we can intervene in it. Because human values, for better or for worse, are embedded in technology during the design process, and trying to change those values later, trying to retrofit them later when the product is already out on the market is difficult and expensive. So there is a real benefit trying to think about the values we embed into digital products before they reach the market, when they're still at that design stage. So we've said playful by design, partly because there is a big movement now for safety by design, for privacy by design, for security by design, for ethics by design. These are all great campaigns, and they have my 100% support. But we could also call them hygiene factors. They're about dealing with the problems, getting rid of what is unsafe, getting rid of what infringes privacy or undermines security or is unethical. And if we designed play spaces which were safe and private and secure and ethical, they might still be boring. They might still require all children to play in the same, not stimulate children's imagination and give them a space of agency. So even though the hygiene are crucial, they are necessary but not sufficient. and a child rights perspective is about the whole vision, about not only children having their being protected, but also children participating and growing and developing in a digital world. So a child rights approach means redesigning the digital environment, both to remove the factors that impede the qualities of play, that stop play being imaginative and open-ended and safe and risk-taking and so on, and enhancing the features that enable them. And that's really our invitation to the businesses, because businesses, Fortnite or Minecraft or YouTube, they can redesign their space centrally and it will benefit all the children who use it. Otherwise, we are forever teaching children or teaching parents how to navigate their way through using the app in ways that are beneficial and not harmful. But that's a huge burden for every child and every parent. And actually, it's too great a burden. Parents are busy with many things, and children don't understand all the demands upon them, and they are also very busy. So it makes sense in so many ways for the businesses to redesign those environments. In our report, we applied Playful by Design as a model, as a vision, to these 8 apps. And as you will see, some of them are classic games like Fortnite and Minecraft and Roblox. And some of them, as I've said, have become play spaces during the pandemic, like Zoom. And some of them are digital spaces where children are playful, like finding YouTube's videos and dancing in front of them, or making a game of what might come up next, or creating their own games and uploading them to YouTube. Or WhatsApp can be, a chat space, a shared space, a humor space, a place in which memes are shared. So what children engage with playfully is what we're really trying to promote. But these will have to be in crucial ways redesigned, because in the report we go through each. Does it enable the qualities of free play, and where does it stand on the design features that undermine those qualities of play? To give you a sense of where we got to. And we've been trying to think about kind of what works, what would be the levers for change. For the statisticians amongst you, this is a very simple correlation matrix. We just took children's ratings of all the 12 qualities of play, and we correlated them with all the different features of the design environment that we rated them on. And then we could begin to see what are the correlations. So if you want to promote a more diverse play space online, you would need to build more pathways for players to kind of navigate their route and ensure that those stay age appropriate. Otherwise, children will be too cautious. Options where children can choose the different possibilities, and perhaps enable more intergenerational play, so children are not all stuck in their own private separate space, and so on. If you wanted to enable more risk-taking play, you might build more pathways also and allow for some hybridity, some kind of bridging of online and offline spaces, and so on. So this is something actually we're still working on. We're still trying to think about how can the design features better facilitate the qualities of play, and how can we overcome what constrains them. But I will synthesize it for you into our short recommendation of, of what is required to be playful all the way far into 7, key the public consultation, and which come from the analysis of the survey. So should you be a small business thinking of developing a game for children, or perhaps should you be a teacher wondering which digital apps can you recommend, or perhaps you're a parent looking at all the possible games and apps that you might download and wondering which ones would be good for a child or a company design. Required for Playful by Design is to be welcoming, prioritize digital features that are inclusive, sociable, and welcoming for all, reducing hateful communication, forms of exclusion, and reflecting multiple identities. Playful by Design also means that the digital space enhances children's imagination, that it provides creative resources and imaginative, open-ended play over predetermined pathways built on popularity metrics or driven by commercial pressures. Playful by Design means enabling open-ended play that provides and enhances features that offer easy-to-use pathways, flexibility, and variety that supports children's agency of stimulating play. No commercial exploitation. This is a tough one, I appreciate, but let's say Playful by Design means reducing those compulsive features dependency on games, so that children's immersive play is intrinsically motivated and freely chosen. Playful by Design means ensuring creativity so that children contact them and there's help there when they need it. And Playful by Design means allowing for experimentation, recognizing that exploration and risk-taking is vital in children's development, and that we don't want them always to become too cautious and anxious and always having to follow the rules set by others. They should make their own rules. They should even be able to break their own rules. And Playful Design means being age appropriate, respecting the needs of children of different ages. I've talked today about children from the age of 6 to 17. Actually, we did some in the consultation. We talked to some as young as 3 to 17. They're all different and they need different opportunities, but they also want to play together sometimes in different ways, in ways that don't put them all in a kind of an age box. This is just for 3-year-olds and this is just for 11-year-olds. So we are now putting out, we now have a call out for designers and developers. We want them to help to work with us to develop resources for designers and co-design practices. So that's where we're going next. Yeah. And then really my last slide is to say, I'm not naive. I recognize that there are going to be many challenges, but I'm trying to find a space for a discourse of child rights that isn't opposed to adult rights, but that kind of recognizes that adults actually often want the same things for children and with children. Children really emphasize, for example, intergenerational play or being in spaces that others engage with, and adults don't want to be always just in a world that is adult only. So I think that we need to make visible the needs of the whole society that don't seem to say it won't be any good for adults. I think we also want to overcome any temptation to see children as this generation of children as the kind of the test case. Well, we'll just let them out there. You know, if they die, we'll know there's something poisonous in the environment, but we'll just let them out there first. No, we really want to be thinking and designing and improving things all the time. It's not a child rights approach to think that children can have their rights dealt with over there in a funny little space that's just for children. This really is about children being in the world. Being designing the app so that they are age appropriate for all ages and generations. And I hope you can see the importance of collaboration and inclusion and voice as a way of trying to kind of hear what children are really saying to us, and then finding ways to negotiate that with what is possible for designers, with what is wanted by parents, with what is needed and advised by educators. And here is a copy of our academic article, just should you be interested. So we in the Digital Futures Commission, we're blogging all the time about all of our work. So it's at digitalfuturescommission.org.uk, and do please visit the blog. I would love to hear from everyone. I would love to know what folk think of the work, and I am really thrilled that I had this opportunity today to talk to you about the work I'm.
Muito bom, hein? Muito bom. Nilza, sobre a tradução, né? Nós vamos compartilhar, já está traduzido esse relatório, então fica tranquila que durante o festival vocês vão receber mais informações. Digital Futures Commission, que realmente faz um trabalho incrível na Inglaterra, e a Sônia Livingston participou do nosso ciclo o ano passado, o ciclo Jogos Online, Infância e Adolescência. E a Sônia é uma pesquisadora bastante conhecida, a gente acha o trabalho dela muito relevante, ela autorizou essa tradução, inclusive, para o português e para o espanhol, então nós vamos publicar pela Games for Change América Latina. Estou vendo aqui o Tibete também, presente. Congratulations, obrigado. O Tibete está na Alemanha. E eu queria fazer assim, um comentário rápido, né? São esquenta, a gente também testando aqui nossos sistemas. E realmente parece que a discussão sobre os impactos do jogo digital na saúde das crianças e dos adolescentes perdeu um pouco de ímpeto, né? E a gente, durante o festival, vai querer realmente retomar essa discussão. Então, na sexta-feira, inclusive, a gente retoma o ciclo ao vivo. Quem tiver inscrição online, acompanha online. Quem vier até a USP vai poder conhecer vários dos apresentadores. Alguns também estão fora do Brasil. Então, é híbrido, né? O evento realmente vai rolar híbrido. É isso, gente. Sistemas funcionando, vocês vão receber mais notícias. Fiquem ligados no e-mail, daqui a pouco no Brela também, comunicações pelo Brela. Estamos chegando no 11º Festival Games for Change América Latina. A gente se vê já já. Obrigado aí quem veio nessa primeira sessão, esquentando o ambiente, começando, se bem que vamos combinar que aqui em São Paulo, no Brasil, já está bastante quente. A gente quer estar em outro sentido, né? De todo mundo ficar bem ligado, de organização, né? De gente que quer mudar o mundo, criando jogos e jogando para transformar. Obrigado, gente. Até já.